The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production.
I'm not so sure, Kev, I've ever had to share you with this many people before. Well, not in podcast land. I should probably put that into context, shouldn't I? Welcome to the first birthday bash recorded live at the House of Photography in London's trendy Covent Garden!
The FujiCast.
Oh. Well, who'd have thought it, eh? 1 year, 52 episodes, and Kev, we are still friends.
Just.
It's a different kind of show today, though. We do have some questions you've sent in to click@fujicast.co.uk. But really today, we have a kind of an open mic session with everybody that's here. There's at least, 500 people in this room. Minimum. So we have some questions from them as well, because that kind of makes sense to this whole thing. Joining us today, a very special guest, Andreas Georgiadis, the UK's marketing manager for Fujifilm. And as we're here in the house that Fujifilm built, the pulse of everything that's happening, we thought he would be the perfect guest for this particular show. And at the end of the show, I think we're going to try and grab a couple of disaster stories as well. We have possibly a couple of people lined up for disasters, and you can vote what you think is the best disaster in the audience. There's got to be at least 700 people in this room. And before we start, another shameless segment of commercialism that we'd like to announce that myself and Kev, we're expecting a beautiful baby. A beautiful baby rangefinder-style member of the family in a few weeks' time, obviously. But no, actually, it's the course that we're talking about. We're going to be doing a joint course, aren't we?
11th of June, yes.
11th of June. Nice and close to your microphone.
Oh, yeah,
all those lessons. So 11th of June. What's the kind of stuff we're going to be doing?
Weddings, documentary.
Yeah, photo films.
Stuff like that. Yes.
And actually learning to turn on the video button on your camera.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because I think that's something we've discussed quite a lot on the show in the last couple of weeks. Really, is turning on those video buttons. So should we start with a couple of questions?
Yeah, let's go. Prizes for everybody.
Yeah, well, we'll start with one that's been sent in first. Tim Benner, who's a friend of the show, of course. I recently watched a video from Thomas Heaton. Highly suggest you interview him on the podcast. Now, that's funny you should mention that, because we are in a couple of weeks' time. And he mentioned using Iridium X development for his new XT3 files. I was wondering if either of you use this for the RAW file converter with Lightroom. I'm still trying to understand how to use it and questioning if it was worth my purchase. Now, Tim comes from Indiana, as you well know. It's not something I've used. Is it something anybody else has used in here? Yeah? Steve, you've grab that microphone. Steve's microphone wrangling. What?
That is so true.
Yeah. Obviously, that's the funniest part of the show. And I can't really edit that out because there's too much noise.
You've gone very red.
Yeah. Steve, you use it. Why?
So I find it quite useful with high ISO images or images that look a little bit dirtier. Mm-hmm. So I don't use it for every RAW file, but for images that I think look a little bit, they could just need a little bit of cleaning up. And it's not a massive difference, but it's quite a simple workflow. You can either run all your images through it as a separate program, or you can use it as a plugin within Lightroom. Okay. And you end up with a DNG file, an Adobe RAW file, which then you can put through your normal workflough. So it's just another little tool to add to the mix, really.
For me, it just adds another layer of, God, there's something else I've got to do.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
But I just think, particularly at this time of year when it's particularly dark and noisy images, sometimes it just be...
Don't you use Capture One, though?
No, not at all.
I thought you went to Capture One.
No, not at all. No.
Well, I never used it.
No.
Iridium. I've heard lots of good things and stuff about it, but yeah, extra steps and stuff. It's not really. I don't know. No. I've never had a problem with.
Anybody else use it in here? No. Look, I'm looking out at like 800 people, and not one single person using it. I'm not sure what this is. Tim, there we go. Ticked off. That's your question answered. Should we go for an audience one?
Yes. Yeah. Let's go. Hands up. Quick. Jack went first.
Come forward, Jack.
Wow, I feel honoured to be the first question. I've been a photographer professionally for about 14 years.
I know, and I know your work. It's amazing.
Why, thank you. But it's that I suddenly got to a point with weddings where I sort of I am going to carry on doing them very wholeheartedly. I love doing them, but my career needed more to it. And so I'm looking to branch into one area sort of professionally for money, which is film and TV stills, which I've got a huge passion for. But also I want to do more personal projects, which I started doing. And actually I've done a couple already with my new Fuji gear, which, the Fuji gear, I shot my first ever wedding on a Fuji, a couple of Fuji X-T3s in December. So it's kind of the new camera system and also having all this momentum behind me to sort of start something new. My question to you is that I'm trying to juggle professionally what I need to do with the weddings to keep the business healthy, but I also want to find time to also do the other stuff that I want to do, that I have to do, that kind of feeds my creativity as a photographer. You guys do a lot of stuff that isn't your core business. So how do you manage?
Like this, I would say, yeah.
Like this. So it's how you actually manage to balance up the stuff that you need to do for your business versus the stuff that you need to do creatively to sort of keep you guys interested and engaged.
Well, I know my work-life balance is entirely wrong, because I think this is a question about work-life balance as well, isn't it, really? Working hours, well, so I'm an early bird. I get up every morning 5 o'clock. First thing I do is go into the office and answer emails till 6:30.
No, that's not true. First thing you do is send me a message.
Usually, yeah. Are you up?
Bing.
So, yeah, and I probably work very, very long hours to achieve it. And I've got used to that's my way of life. If I want to run a business in photography, I've noticed that you have to work longer hours as well. I'm working more hours now than I was 10 years ago.
Now, I would say, how many weddings you shot, Jack?
I don't know, hundreds and hundreds. I couldn't really, I've not totted them up, but a lot. Yeah.
So I think, we all get to these points where we think, actually, are we just photographing for the job rather than photographing for the fun of it? And, I definitely, and I think probably you as well, Neil, at some point have kind of got to that point where we've gone, it's another wedding. It pays. There are people here who have photographed their weddings, so for your weddings, it wasn't just about paying the bills, right? It was far more important than that. But you get to that point. You get to that point where you and Gemma. I say to Gemma all the time that I just want to do something I want to do the weddings. I like the weddings, and the weddings pay the bills. But I want to do something a little bit more adventurous, creativity wise. And I don't mean like using flash or anything. Just something that makes you smile a bit more. And I think that's just a natural progression. And that's why I asked that question about how many weddings have you shot, because it's really important that for the people that are right at the beginning of their journey, probably they think, what are they on about? It's like, a wedding is great, I can't wait, I'm going to smash it, I'm going to get up in the morning and just go for it. But actually those that have shot 200, 300, 400, you must have done what, 15,000?
Well, I've done 800 weddings in my career.
Yeah.
Are you close to what you think is wedding burnout then?
No, it's not really so much that, to be honest, because I reached that before I discovered Fuji and before I bought my first X100S. So it's that creatively, it's not really about burnout, because I had that, and I had that about a year and a half, 2 years ago, when I was just about to hit 40, which triggers a sort of classic midlife crisis.
You show off.
Oh well, you look 30 if not. But it's just so I already had that, and I already discovered that I already sort of crystallized what I wanted my photography life to be going forward. And weddings I love doing, and they are a core bit of what I do, but I had to start doing other things that sort of fed me in different ways, and I love film stills. I've done that for a little bit.
Did you hear the Keith Bernstein interview?
I did. In fact, I'd love to hear you guys do a longer interview with someone, just more purely about the film and TV stills, because it's its own separate little world.
Yeah.
And quite difficult to break into, like the wedding industry, like anything else. And I feel like I haven't been able to put enough man hours in.
Have you tried breaking into it? Have you?
Yeah, no, I know a few people, and I've done about 3 or 4 projects, all with really good names in, sort of Catherine Tate and lots of other people. And I've got really lovely sort of initial portfolio. But it's just about finding the time to actually develop that bit of the business.
I think ultimately the answer is the same for anything in our business is, once you just have to go, right, this is what I want to do, and you either do it or you don't. ultimately, and you make the time. And if you can't physically make the time, that's fine. But if you can't make the time because of procrastination, then that's not so fine.
Right, let's go for another question from the floor. Who's got one? You don't have to travel far for this one, Steve. Right, this is like question time, isn't it?
With the advancement of wedding videos, do you think there'll come a time when wedding videos and taking photographs from wedding videos will actually replace photography? And if so, will that be a bad day?
Yes, very bad day.
Why?
You can do video and I can't.
See, I think strong. I mean, I've had to change my business in the last 12 months to now embrace doing wedding films. And I know that's not music to the ears for a lot of people in here that want to just believe that it's you just want to do stills. And I'm sure that the work for just doing stills is out there. Of course it is. But in the Thames Valley where I'm based, I'm noticing that the money's come down a little bit, quite a lot in some cases. And also people are asking me to do longer hours, and I thought, you know what, wedding film, I'm going to move a little bit into that because I think it's an area where it's a little bit harder for some photographers just to pick a camera up and go and do it because they've got to understand how to edit sound, they've got to embrace sound, they've got to learn sound. That's a big part of making films. So that's why I've moved into making films as well. As far as your question goes with will the day come where you can pull a still out of a movie? I mean, it's an enormous amount of time, obviously, watching movies to get that one still. I'm not sure you photograph in the same way with exposure as well. I don't know, but it's a question I'm going to. This might be a good time to give a big round of applause and welcome, our main guest here today, Andreas Georgiadis. Andreas, you're probably a good person to answer this question because I know you can't say what cameras are necessarily coming up that might have that power to do so, but it's not going to be long, is it?
Probably this year you'll see some 8K cameras. So 8K is about 32 megapixels.
Yeah.
So from a resolution point of view, that's not going to be an issue. But as you say, do you really want to be picking out one image out of an hour's worth of footage? I can see the technology being available. I can't see the mindset of photographers / videographers being sufficient to be able to do it for a photo album or something like that.
Quite a skill, isn't it?
Well, you can't, like you're going to film something at 25 frames per second, 50 frames per second, 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second, and you're not going to be able to pick a still out, even at 8K. Your exposure levels are not going to be the same as if you were doing a still. It just, your metering for light is going to be different. Your movement. I mean, we shot a wedding together. I did the stills, he did the films. He had the posh room, I had the cupboard.
You're never going to forget that, are you?
No. And the angles we were both doing were different. Most of the time you were just leaning there on the side doing nothing while I was busy taking lots of pictures. And you only have to deliver a 5-minute clip.
That's
I
not
have to
true.
deliver like 600 pictures. It's different mindset.
It is a different way of working when you're shooting wedding videos because you're not trying to. You have to have a room for preparations in the morning, and you're firing all over the place, getting every single angle you can get of just about anything you can get. Whereas with video, I found the whole process was a lot more relaxed, as you probably noticed. That I was working on 1 or 2 or 3 scenes and nailing those really. Instead of thinking, right, I've got to shoot 50 pictures here. I want to get 3 or 4 really nice nailed things that I can see being worked into the film. One day maybe, being able to turn stills out of that film as well. That's going to give you an edge, isn't it, over somebody else? Being able to actually do that film in the first place, though, that's what most photographers won't be able to do. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question from Jeremy. This is for you, Andreas.
Okay.
From Jeremy Henner in Peterborough. He says, I know you'll probably dump this question, which is why I started with it. But I'm going to ask you anyway. What is the obsession with APS-C? Obsession. Is it time to look at the future of full frame? You've got an amazing product, and I love my X-T3s and X100T, but I can't help thinking that full frame would be Fuji's opportunity to really capture the market.
Okay, so there isn't really an obsession. When we first looked at cameras in general and mirrorless, APS-C for us was the best balanced system. So it was about getting size and weight down, optimum image quality, and then something with a little bit of a Fujifilm difference, and that's why we've got the X-Trans sensor and things like that. So for us, mirrorless means weight saving while not sacrificing on image quality. Now, obviously there are advantages to full frame and bigger sensors in general, which is why we developed the GFX system. There are disadvantages in terms of the speed of performance and things like that. But for us, that's why we're fighting on two fronts. So while there is a lot of noise about 35mm sensor size, I don't like calling it full frame, because 20 years ago something else was considered full frame, and 40 years ago something else was considered full frame. So it's a great marketing terminology, but I don't believe it. So we've got that duality in terms of our system. So if somebody wants something that's high resolution, a bit more purposeful, we've got the medium format. If somebody wants something that's going to be smaller and lighter than their DSLR, we've got the X series.
There we go. And also, like, as somebody who's been in the Fujifilm ecosystem for a long time, it's full frame is not something that I never think about it. I never think, I wish there was a little bit more depth of field, or I wish that the sensor was a little bit big. It's just something that never happens in my head.
Yeah, and it comes down to gear acquisition syndrome a bit, in terms of people lusting after this idea that they're going to get lower noise results, or they're going to be able to print bigger, or it's going to be cleaner and images. But from our point of view, if you go bigger sensor, and we've seen it, you end up with a bigger lens, and then you end up with more expensive kit. So I think we've seen it from the likes of Canon, Nikon, and Panasonic recently, that their full frame offering doesn't actually give you any benefits versus a DSLR. They're actually bigger, heavier, and more expensive. So you've got to ask the question, well, why are you going mirrorless then? And for us, we've got a clear reason to go mirrorless and use the APS-C size sensor.
Are there any photographers in here that, because you don't have to be shooting Fujifilm to be here, that are shooting other brands, full frame other brands? Yeah? And there's and we've got about 980 people in here, and we've got about half a dozen hands went up. Are you still, of those hands that went up, who's going to be brave enough to come forward? You got your hand up, come forward, yeah. Looking around, well, me? No, surely not me. Are you still hankering after? Is the reason you've not gone to Fujifilm is that you're still hankering after a full frame?
First experience at Fuji, I had an X-T1, had the 56, the 35, 23, great format, but I was still using Nikon DSLRs. When mirrorless sort of started to evolve, I was using D4s, D810s, and just did the same thing as everyone else, tried out the Sonys, was in America, thought they were great cameras, and just went for it. So shooting weddings mainly, they do what they do, and they're a perfect tool. Recently bought...
That's because you were in America. Everything in America feels
It's just so
good.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I recently bought an X100F, and it's just such a great camera to have about, and I feel more connected in using it. So my kit's got to do another 18 months, in which time, who knows what might be there, but I think I'd probably revisit Fuji as a brand in sort of how it is as a brand and how it makes me feel when I'm working. So.
Well, on that front, actually, Simon Lincoln wrote in, what is the future, since we're talking about brands, what is the future for mirrorless? It's clear that mirrorless is the way ahead. Canon are about to up their game with a twin card system, for example, but how will companies vie for attention in a very similar market? It's getting to a stage where it's so difficult to distinguish between a picture made on a Canon or Nikon, or one made or Nikon, or one made with a Fuji or, say, Sony. So what will be the distinguishing factor? Will it be the price only?
I think going back to my answer previously, it's about the size and weight for us. So we have a reason why to convert from your DSLR system and things like that. So that's why we stay with APS-C, because we have size and weight advantages with minimal differences in image quality. As mirrorless technology improves, and obviously we've come a massive way in sort of like the 9 years that we've been doing it, the autofocus speed will get quicker, and the various detection systems and sort of like eyes, faces, head, shoulders, knees and toes and what have you. So for us, obviously the future is mirrorless. The UK market is now selling more mirrorless cameras than they are DSLRs. Yeah. I still, in my heart of hearts, believe that one area that you're going to struggle to convert people from DSLRs is sort of like at the sort of like Olympics and football stadia and things like that. Obviously those people are so invested in in the Canons and Nikons of this world, and they have their 400 mils and their 600 mils. So that's going to be an area that's going to be really tough for mirrorless to break through. But the technology is there to outperform DSLRs.
But on that question, I think it's very easy to see the difference between images. Like you can easily see, when you have a Fujifilm camera that has the JPEGs, a Sony camera, Canon camera, Nikon. I think it's I think it's not. I don't think it's that plain cut that all images look the same.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go out to the floor again. We had a whole load of hands. There's 900. There's 1,050 people here.
One for Andreas.
So this one has to be for Andreas. Yeah. So come forward,
Bartek.
Hi everyone. Question probably to Andreas. I hope you will be able to give us a little bit more information about Fuji professional services, especially when we're talking about the, let's say, camera brand battles. How Fuji tries to, let's say, win us over, providing and focusing on the professional photographers, and how the process exactly look like throughout the Europe overall. I'm based in Ireland myself personally, and would like to find out a little bit more about it.
From a Fujifilm professional services point of view, we struggle to get a pan-European agreement. So in terms of, while we have agreements in France, Spain, UK, Germany, it's not as simple as I'm a FPS member in the UK, and if I go to France and have a problem, my membership carries over and things like that. We are a relatively small brand, so we know a lot of the people by name, and we're quite contactable. And obviously, I'm on this panel because I expose myself, not like that, Kevin.
There was that time in Merthyr.
Easy.
On my wedding night. But so from our point of view, we're trying to add Ireland to the UK FPS system. The challenge that we've got currently is with regards to couriers and getting the kit back to the UK. And we're blessed in the UK, and we offer a great service in the UK because we've got the service centre in the UK. Unfortunately, we don't have service centres everywhere across Europe, so we're always coming back to the UK from that point of view. But it is something that is high on our agenda. We've had FPS now live in the UK for 3 years. It's 3 years, from the 1st of April. And we've rolled it out to other markets, and now more countries have it, but that turnaround time is what we haven't got available to every single market. So while in the UK we have a 48-hour or 72-hour turnaround time for faulty items, and we have the loan system, we're unable to offer that in every single market because we have to get that camera back. So we are working hard to improve our level of service in all the other markets in Europe, but it's something that unfortunately will take time until we set up those places in those countries.
Okay, thank you for your question. Right, who's next? Who's got come forward there.
Hi, so first of all, my girlfriend says, Kev, no more book recommendations, because I bought too many over the last couple of weeks.
What ones did you buy? Let's put you on the spot.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Was
too
it
many.
the art of sexual dependency?
You just didn't want to say it, did you, really?
I haven't told her about that one. So my question is probably open up to all three of you, really, is with the way that technology is moving with cameras, is there anything outside of the core camera components that would make a good technological leap going forward? For example, I would love something in a camera that would allow me to take location and time data in.
That's the GPS stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, so the GPS stuff is possible. It's a faff in terms of making sure you've paired it to your smartphone and things like that. For me, the next technological leap I'd like to see is with 5G SIM cards embedded into cameras, uploading to cloud directly. So that sort of thing is what I'd like to see. Obviously, the limitation...
I'm not sure Kev's sharing your enthusiasm with that one.
No, from backing up and things like that. So it's we're way away from that because obviously 5G hasn't rolled out here. But that's the next technological leap that I think would make a difference to pros in terms of being able to give them that sense of reassurance that all their stuff is backed up immediately and things like that. Not sharing with clients or anything, but but you've got power drain requirements and things like that would impact that. The network has to be available. You'd obviously have to have a subscription and things like that. But that's what I see as the next way, because currently cameras aren't connected devices like they should be.
I just want to see very basic things, actually. I like to see a proper flip screen because it is useful for when you're filming. And what else can I... Yeah, and an in-body image stabilization in an XT body would be lovely.
Huh?
I know it all costs money, but I've got it. I'm ready for it.
I wondered when you press one of those buttons.
Right. Yeah, we're going for another question. Let's go for another question from the floor. Come forward just a little bit there, if you can.
What was your most memorable booking and why?
Do you mean in weddings?
Well, just any booking,
Oh,
for the
okay.
wrong reason.
It's almost like a disaster story. Most memorable, yeah. Probably for the wrong reason. I personally myself with a wedding. I remember doing a particularly plush wedding, and it was. I think enough years have gone by now that possibly the bride won't remember this, and probably doesn't listen to this podcast.
And might not be married.
I might, yeah. I
Very
think
true.
there's a high probability of that. I remember doing a particularly plush wedding, beautiful wedding. Everything must have cost an absolute fortune. There was like a fleet of Rolls Royces taking people up the drive because they didn't want to have people's cars littering in front of this particular building. I was driving an old Volvo at the time. I certainly wasn't allowed to park anywhere near the building. All during the day, all I heard was a bride and groom, to be fair, complaining. This is a 5. If it would be possible to have a 6-star in this country, it would have been very much on that, in that kind of category. And all day long, the bride shouted at me, the bride shouted at every single supplier because this wasn't right or that bit wasn't right. And I'm being careful here because I don't want to seem that, one of those male photographers that talks about brides having problems. Just as many males can be a pain in the backside as well. But it came to the cake cutting. And I called her over with her husband. I said, right, we're ready for the cake cutting. And I said, this beautiful cake, it's a lovely cake. And she looked at me straight in the face. She said, I will not be cutting that cake today. It is the wrong shade of pink. And I turned to the videographer, who I knew very, very well.
Was he leaning against the wall?
And it was Julie and Danny who worked together. And I said, Julie, what would you pay me to actually push her face into the cake at this particular moment? And Julie said, I think that would go viral, but you'd never work in photography ever again. That seems a terrible thing to be the most memorable thing of all those beautiful weddings I've shot, but I particularly remember the look that day on this. And she didn't cut it.
No, well, I'm not surprised.
I did. Took a little bit out of it, in the kitchen. Kev, come on, memorable moment. Would it be the time that you killed off that grandmother?
There was a time. Yeah, there was a time the old woman died. Yeah, that was bad.
They're not here, are they? By the way, the family.
No. There was the time I shot a wedding with you, and
you just don't like me getting all the great hotel rooms.
There was Andreas's wedding. No, I think pretty much an old woman dropping dead in front of you is as bad as it gets.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's all been pretty good.
You were the last person she saw, weren't you? You had that eye. The last image that went through that lady's retina was Kevin Mullins.
What a way to go.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, moving on very quickly so we don't get you in trouble. You've got one of them. Come forward.
Hi, I'm Michael Schilling. Lovely to be here. This is a question actually I heard from a photographer called Paul Tracy, who was doing a talk, and he said this is a brilliant question. And when he was training photography, he got asked this question himself. You got to set the scenario a little bit, that you're in a spaceship and you're just about to leave the Earth.
Hold on a minute.
Warning.
This is going to be a long question.
You're about to leave the Earth forever, and you can take away 3 photographs with you.
Oh, God, right, okay.
One of them can be a family photograph.
Yeah.
One of them can be your own, whatever it is, and another one could be someone else's photograph. What 3 photographs would you take?
So give those 3 again. One
of them could be a family one.
Yeah.
The other one can be any picture that maybe defines your career, defines your photography, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the third one could be any other photographer's image.
Yeah.
So we can take 3.
3 photos.
Three photos.
Each.
Each.
Take them each.
3. Well, that's 6.
You're in your own spaceships and modules.
No, that's 9 because
Yeah, it's 9.
yeah, because Andreas is counted in this one.
Yeah, interest is 9. Yeah, absolutely.
But you can go first because I can't think of the third one.
I can't even remember. What did you say? Like one of his.
You have to take one of Neil,
I'll take
One
a
of
picture of Neil.
picture of Neil, picture of Gemma,
Picture of Gemma. Where is she?
and picture of your kids.
Okay, professional picture. I would probably take the one of bless her, Gemma, when she was in labour with our first child, because she was in a lot of pain. But that's the picture that
There's a particularly nice family memory for you.
A picture somebody else took. I would probably take. Oh cripes! I don't know. I would probably take. I would take the one that fella that went on the moon took from the first picture on the moon. What was his name? Buzz Aldrin.
No, Neil Armstrong.
No, he didn't take the picture.
Oh, did he not? He didn't take the picture. Who took the picture?
See, I did. That was
Oh,
a
you
joke.
did, yeah.
That was a trick.
Yeah,
That
it was,
trick.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Walked into that one.
And what was the other attribute?
It can be a family photo, but obviously, what type of photo is it? Is it all of you together, or is it a nice moment that? I suppose that one, the first one you said.
Yeah, Gemma
could kind of class as that.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, then I only get to take 2.
Yeah, sorry about that. Andreas, come on. I know you don't work every week as a wedding photographer or anything, but what would you take? 3 photos.
What would I take? It'd probably be something of my wife giving birth to our kids.
There's a lot of wife giving birth pictures.
Yeah, apparently I wasn't present at the event. She doesn't listen to the podcast, so I can say that.
Okay.
I hope I was there. I don't know.
It's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're from Croydon, I can tell. That's a stupid question.
That's what we think about.
Oh dear.
It's really confusing. It's like
I
crossword.
I mean, family-wise, I found. Do you remember those little cubes that we used to? Well, people of a certain age have the photo cubes, the 3-dimensional photo cubes.
We did talk about.
We did talk about it. Sorry, we did. Sorry, I forget. But I found that only recently, and there's a picture of me in my little red wellies, helping to wash Dad's car or van when I was about 5. That's a particularly lovely family. I think I'd like to take that one of Dad. I did write them down here. There's another cake one for me actually. When I suggested somebody cut the cake by lopping the top off, and I didn't realise it was one of those. What do they call them? The fritterole ones. What are they called? Croque en bouche. Yeah, and of course I should have realised the cake topper was actually joined by a rod going through the middle of it to the bottom and then screwed in. So when she went to knock the top off, the whole cake went, and that went onto the floor. But I love that picture.
Fearless. That's a fearless award.
It's a fearless award. Yeah. No, I'd never put it in for that. And then I guess if I was choosing, I did write down here, so I did cheat. But Tom Stoddart took a particular picture that again is from my youth. That it's a horrific picture of the Lockerbie disaster. There's a picture of a 747 on its side in that field. And in front of that 747, there's a ghostly figure of a policeman that was tasked with looking after, not letting anybody near it, no journalists near it. He was tasked with that, and because Tom took it on a slow shutter speed, it looks like a ghost walking in front of the aircraft. It's certainly a picture from my youth that I remember, and fortunately, I got a chance to spend some time with Tom, and he explained that whole process. It was like being with, your god of photography, as he was telling me that story.
So you're leaving on a rocket ship,
Yeah.
and you want to take a picture of a plane crash.
That's what I was thinking.
I appreciate this.
I have to spend a day a week with him.
Well, we spent the whole aircraft. And the only time I've ever heard three bongs, sort of disasters.
Bong, bong, bong.
Yeah, bong, bong, bong.
Okay, next question. Hands up.
Name's Leon Lewis.
Hi, Leon.
With your love of photography books, what would be your holy grail of photography book?
Oh, Kev, this is a question for Kev. Definitely. Have you got one? I thought you were leaning in to get your holy grail of. Go on, Kev. What would be your choice? You're the resident book collector.
There's a great book by Alex Soth called I think it's called I Know How Furiously Your Heart Is Beating.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that book. It's very, very pretty simple pictures, but very passionate pictures. And the title is amazing. I know how furious.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah.
Amazing. And the cover is simply, it's a bit like the home book that Fujifilm did for Magnum. It almost looks like wallpaper, and then it's just the words embossed. So Alex Elf, I think I can't. It's impossible to pick one, but. I think if I had to pick that one, I'd go for that one.
I'm interested actually with a few other people. I mean, we're all photographers in this room. Can a couple of people come near the front and tell us what photography books that you would rush into the house to save if God forbid the house is on fire. Let's get a couple of people come forward towards the microphone. What would you? Scott, what would you choose? Ex-photographer, Scott. Not ex-photographer, as in former photographer. I still get confused with that.
Just there to I think I mentioned it on the bath. I've got the Magnum contact sheets, and it's just genius to look back and see how the masters of our craft would literally crop and shoot 2-3 rolls of film to get now that one image, and that for me is I used to handprint contact sheets, so to look back and see some of the world's most famous photographs and all the mistakes they made to get that one image, I think it's priceless. That's the one for me.
Darren Rose, I recently put about Trent Park's book, Minutes to Midnight, on the Facebook.
Yes.
Really enjoying that, but I think probably Forms of Japan by Michael Kenner would be the one I'd go with me.
Why?
I love minimal landscapes, all shot on film, the kind of square format, black and white. It's just a lovely big tomb of a book that I'd happily spend all day looking at.
Isn't this interesting? Because this purist thing, the film thing is really important to us as photographers.
Igor Kostin and Chernobyl. Amazing book. Amazing book.
Yes.
Just the whole gravity of the situation and the fact he just gets in there and does it.
Do you think Chernobyl's been over-photographed now?
Yeah, totally now.
It's a shame, isn't it?
But when Igor was doing it, and ironically, through all that and all the sort of problems he had after as a result of that, and you think, wow, amazing project.
Give us an example of those problems that he had. I mean, clearly going into Chernobyl is never a picnic, is it?
So of course, obviously with Chernobyl, the situation and the high levels of radiation, he suffered with many health problems throughout the years. Lots of operations. I think it was about 17 operations for cancer he had. He actually didn't die of cancer. He died in 2015 in a car accident. So aged about late 70s, early 80s, I think. So amazing man, amazing book.
Did he take the picture out of the helicopter with the round window where the exposure was lost?
That was the one.
Or not lost, but it was round, wasn't it, because of the radiation?
The book is amazing. It's not easy to get hold of now, but it's incredible photography book. Wonderful. There's another book which is about snow. My brother has it. I can't even remember who does it, but it's just about pictures of snow. That's really hard to get hold of. A great book.
Lots of white pages.
Amazing, loads of white pages, but it's amazing.
We got one more book.
I have a vast book collection, photographic book collection, but if I had to save one, it would be Diane Arbus. It would have to be the first Diane Arbus book. It is just a raw kind of vision of a way of life, which is so kind of strange that she went into. And it is probably my favourite photo book, really. Yeah, it has to be. I'd go with Carnival Strippers as well, actually. I really like Susan Marsalis' Carnival Strippers.
There we go. Thank you very much for those. Let's go for another question now, shall we? A question from the audience. Come forward.
Hi, I'm Keith. I apologise for this as well. If crows are collectively known as a murder, what are wedding photographers?
A gaggle.
What's collectively known as a murder?
Collective noun for
crows. Crows, I think, is my dogs.
A shambles?
Shambles of wedding photography. That's not good from somebody who photographed your wedding.
Dare I say this? An ego of photographers? Sometimes.
I don't know. Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good question.
We need to think of that. A collective noun.
A collective noun for a group of wedding photographers in particular.
Yeah.
Any ideas? A drunk. Sorry? A shutter.
An exposure.
An exposure, An exposure. Well, or maybe not. Okay. Oh, yeah, there's a question that came in from Bilbo the cameraman. Love this.
That's not his name.
Well, that was his handle. Question for Andreas. The new GoPros have the Hyper Smooth system. How difficult would this to be to stick into the next HT or XT rather, or XH cameras? That would be a dream.
So what's the Hyper Smooth?
So Hyper Smooth, how do we explain? This is where I took mine onto a mountain and was skied down, and honestly, it looked like you'd flown down with a drone. It was amazing. Do you know how it works?
Yeah, so electronic stabilization is rather than using physical movement, mechanical inside the camera, after it's processing the footage, it goes through and essentially crops in.
Yeah, it crops,
and
doesn't it?
moves
Yeah.
the tracking points, and eventually you'll come out with a point that is slightly lower resolution. I mean, it's not really noticeable in the GoPro because it's shooting 4K, that sort of thing. But it'll essentially just crop in so you don't notice the jiggling of the edges.
I think you should come and do the show from next week, actually. And Andreas, what do you think? Any chances?
So the XT200 that we announced last week has a digital gimbal mode,
right,
which actually does exactly that. It uses slightly lower resolution, which allows movement digitally to happen and tracks people and works exactly the same way in terms of a digital stabilization system. So that technology exists in a camera that we announced last week.
Perfect.
But the XT200 is kind of entry level type. It's not high end stuff, is it?
Typically, no. The XT200 and the XA7 would be classified as our entry into the X series. Yeah.
Do you want to throw out?
Yes.
Because we're in the last 10 to 15 minutes of the show, believe it or not.
Yeah, there we go. It's Brian Boyce, and it's probably know the answer to this one already. But given that that's digital stabilization, is that something that could be done in firmware as an update?
No.
Yeah, I thought that might be the answer.
That's not even worth a T-shirt.
No, no. Go on, Brian, have a T-shirt. There we go. All right, another question.
Hi everyone, I'm Sikandar.
Hi, Sikandar.
Yep, and do you ever feel, in terms of your personal projects, that there's a certain pressure to go away from where you're based in terms of like geographical area in order to see some new sites or anything like that?
Do you know, that's really interesting because Mark Power, who I filmed for the home film for Fujifilm, he said exactly that. He said, you know, the hardest thing to do is photograph your hometown. And he found that particularly difficult. He said, I live here, I see it every day, but I just, photographically, I can't turn on to it. I've got no idea how to photograph my hometown as a personal project. I thought that was really interesting for sort of what I consider to be a magnum great.
Well, I can't really remember the question, but what I'd like is for Sikandar to come and talk to me when I'm trying to go to sleep, because that was a beautiful voice. Amazing, isn't it?
Sikandar, take that in the right way, by the way. I'll be having...
I think that for me personally, yeah. I mean, Malmesbury is a pretty quiet place. Everybody knows each other, you know. So there's not a lot of stuff going on there. But however, saying that you know, I saw a book the other day. Oh no, it was a newspaper article, and it was basically the shoes of people wearing on the underground. It was essentially the shoes that people are wearing on the tube, and that was interesting. You know, you don't have to go far to make an interesting story. You just have to, I think, have something to look for. You know,
that's a difficult project to shoot without being, you know, what are you doing?
Creepy.
Yeah,
no, well, it's not, is it? Because you just go like this. It's really easy.
That's true.
It's much easier than going like that.
Yeah, that's true. All right, another question. Let's try and whip around a few questions here.
This is a question for Andreas. So yeah, well, people were talking about books and how their favourite books usually relate to film photography. I've started shooting film over the past sort of year and a half, and really enjoying the experience of it. Obviously, when it comes to like professional work, I shoot RAW, and I do use presets and stuff to try and emulate common film stocks. When it comes to, you know, like family work and stuff for myself, I use Fujifilm simulations. Would there ever be scope in the future for Fuji to add simulations to maybe emulate more common film stocks like Portra, Fuji 400H and stuff like that?
There wouldn't ever be a scope for us to do competitors' old films. That's sort of like legal wranglings and what have you. You wouldn't get involved. With classic neg, that came about. We thought it was going to be more Riala based, but it ended up becoming a bit more sort of like superior from like the 70s, 80s. The engineers are always looking at different film stocks, and you just need to look at the past ones that we've just done in terms of a Turner, Acros before that, and classic neg. Whether or not they're going to be called something like 400H or what have you is different, but they're always being challenged in terms of, well, to justify, well, what's your next film simulation going to be? So what that might be, don't know, but by all means, if anyone's got any suggestions about what film simulations they might like to see from Fujifilm's past, feel free to put them on the group. And
also, while I've got you, obviously the update came out for the X-T3 yesterday, I think it was.
Yeah.
And we appreciate that. Hail Fujifilm. But obviously, do you think that there's scope for the classic neg to come to the X-T3? Are you aware of that happening in the future? Because it didn't.
Honestly, I don't know if it's going to come. Historically, we've made a rod for our own back in terms of being very good at when we've launched new cameras. We've announced firmware that means that existing cameras will have new features and things like that. Right now, obviously, you can have a look at rumors and things. So our engineers are busy developing new products and stuff like that. So unfortunately, it's a relatively small team in terms of camera manufacturers' point of view. So resources are currently allocated to new products coming out. When they have a quiet time this year, I'd love them to put classic neg into X-T3 and sort of like the multi-shot and the bracketing and the sort of like the stacking focus and things like that. But I honestly don't know if it will come. It's not even a fob off of I know and I'm not telling you. I can do those fob off ones in a bit, but that one
I've got a load of fob off ones just there. But,
I think it's interesting that you say that unfortunately it's a small team, because I think that's the power of it, really. And I know it's like just words, but if you look at like other companies, and we all have access. Like Andreas is the marketing manager, correct?
Yes.
Of Fujifilm UK, sat here listening to you, answering questions, and I'm not just blowing it up him, so to speak. Again. It's like I think the fact that it is a small, we've seen it firsthand. The engineers, the people, and the hard work that they put into it, and and they make stuff that happens, and sometimes they make stuff that doesn't happen, and it's just
So I love the fact that it's a small team. I love the fact that we're approachable. I love the fact that we listen and we show people that we listen. But the unfortunately is that we have limited resources. So it's not. I wouldn't want it any other way. It's just that it means that we can't do firmware updates for every single camera, sort of like every other month when a new feature comes to light and things like that, because it's not literally a copy paste and just rolling it into the new camera. So as Kevin says, I mean we've got direct access. We're a quite flat structure. We've got direct access to all the engineers and all the product planners in Japan, and we've got the X Summit on the 4th, and we've got.
And the X Summit's here, isn't it?
The X Summit is going to be,
which is great.
Is here? How do we talk about? Is here? Was here?
Just say it two ways, and I can edit the right one in.
and we had obviously the lead designer come over, and sort of like our general manager and the various bosses, and they're quite happy to be the face of Fujifilm on a global level. So, yeah.
Right, let's. We're going to talk to JP in a second, but do you want to should we do the fob off questions? Well, we'll run through them. We'll see how much Andreas will tell us. Peter Vokings, all this talk about XT4, what about an XH2, or is the XH range for the chop with all the rumours being spread about a T4? Go on then, there's the first one.
The problem with talking about rumours, it's like talking about your next ex-wife. You're currently with someone, so just enjoy being with that person. Don't talk about the future.
Oh, that's so well rehearsed. That is brilliant. I know I'll give you top marks for that one. I'm going to tick that question off.
Where's Gemma? Where's Gemma, my XH4?
Here we are. Hanover Green. That's a great name. Hanover Green. On the fence between XT3 and XH1, I know there are new goodies on the horizon, but with good deals on both now, any thoughts?
Loads.
Go on. Any thoughts?
We need flesh on that.
Flesh on that one. Yeah.
Ultimately, it comes down to what they're taking pictures of. So for me, if it was stills as a priority, I would prioritise the XT3. If it was about a bit more video, needing that stabilisation, not wanting to carry a bigger kit, I think the XH1.
XH1 is perfect.
They both have the pros and cons, and obviously, in an ideal world, you'd have the features of one in the body of the other, and who knows what might come. I mean, where is the question from?
Study his eyes, everybody.
I don't know.
Study
Hanover
his eyes.
Green. Hanover Green. I mean, ultimately, there's going to be some great deals at the photography show and things like that. So that might
I'm not
be
sure if Hanover's in this country or not. I didn't. Yeah,
It might be a
I didn't
great
copy-paste
opportunity,
properly.
sort of like that sort of time to come and have a look at us on the Fujifilm stand.
And with a possible XT4, I'll just throw one in.
Yeah, go on.
Obviously, 4 is an unlucky number in Asia, isn't it? Isn't it?
I think so. I think
so. Would
4
there
is
be
like
would it be an XT3S or something? Do you think?
It's too unlucky to say.
I was just trying to sort of weave around the back streets to get an answer on that one, but that was you were never for the moving there, were you? Really? No. Okay, I'll tick that one off as well. Then there we go.
It was like trying to get the deposit for the wedding.
It was.
So we also have 2 pairs. That's 4 whole tickets.
Yes.
For the photography show.
Yes,
to give away.
Which we're going to do with the disaster story, aren't we?
Are we?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just ruined him.
Yeah. Sorry about that. But in the meantime, well, JP, come forward for a second.
Yes.
So
JP.
a big round of applause, please, for JP. That's the sound. That's the sound of 1,500 people in a room. JP, of course, Mr. Simpler Straps to us. Thank you very much for supporting the show over the last year. That was
Such a pleasure.
Very, very kind of you.
Well, I tell you, JP, I was where were we? Not WPPI, New York.
It was the PDN Photo Expo at the Javits Center.
Yeah, that's it. And
nice that you remembered him.
I was just no. I remembered him. I just couldn't quite remember where it was.
Right.
And I remember I was chatting to somebody else, and JP just came up to me and said, "I'd like to give you a strap," and that was it. That was basically it. Right?
It wasn't exactly like that, as I recall.
No,
but,
that's the romantic
something
version.
like that.
Yeah,
and then I just disappeared like a ghost.
Yeah, it just went poof.
Yeah. And it was like everyone else disappeared.
Yeah, and then of course JP came on board and supported the podcast, which many of you have benefited from that. So we just wanted to give him a little platform on, and so I have a question to kick that little platform off. How do you, in a world of consumerism for cameras, straps and things and stuff and flashing, what gives you the momentum to just go, actually, I've got something to do and I want to do it? Where's the passion from?
Yeah, so I think sort of to tie into what Andreas was saying a little bit before, talking about the size of cameras versus how much people wanted to use them, it really ties into my history, unironically, with Fujifilm cameras from when I was a kid. When I borrowed, and I'm saying borrowed in air quotes for anyone that can't see me, I borrowed my dad's Fujica ST701 when I was 13 years old. And it was, people say it's the best camera is the camera you have with you, but I would actually remove the last U on there and say the best camera is the camera you have. And that was the one camera that I had, and that was sort of, basically it was the entryway into learning how to smoke cigarettes and meet girls, and it was like the wondrous world of that opened up for me when I had that Fujica camera. As time went on, I had other cameras, I had bigger cameras, and I felt like I had lost a lot of that passion that I had by having a camera that took great images and was small enough to keep with me. And when I finally returned to Fujifilm, I purchased an X Pro 1. And I remember saying to myself, I'm so excited about this camera. I want to I want to get a camera strap that would be perfect to go with it. And shockingly, I couldn't really find one that I liked. So, to answer your question, Kevin, none of this was really about starting a camera strap company at all. It was really an afterthought of making a camera strap for myself that I thought paired well with a small mirrorless size camera. And just thinking to myself, you know what, if I can't find a camera strap that I like and I had to make one, maybe somebody else will feel the same way. So that's really what it grew out of. And it was really just trying to enhanced how passionate I felt about the camera by combining it with a strap that was made for it.
And I think it's made you the most coolest person I've ever met.
Thanks, Kevin.
So without kind of doing the whole kind of sponsorship stuff and everything, there are vouchers here for JP and his simpler straps. We all use them, or we have used them, and some of you have had, lots of you in fact have received them over the past year. So we have a great appreciation to JP. He's come all the way over here to talk to you. He will be with us for the evening, I guess, hopefully. So any questions?
Sure
and if you want to talk to him about straps, he will be here.
Round of applause for JP. What have we got in your prize thing? We're almost out of prizes, aren't we? We're almost out of time. So have we got a couple? We got a couple of last questions at all? There we go. Have we got one more strap left as well? Yeah, there we go. All right. What do you want? A strap
disasters.
Yeah, we're going to do disasters. A strap or a T-shirt for this one?
A strap would be lovely.
Yeah. That was the first question.
Sorry, I'm not good with questions now. It's Murray anyway. And
I know.
It's a question to both of you, given the success of last year's X-Weddings conference. Probably to Kevin and to Gemma, wherever Gemma is. What date's the next one?
This is a bit like when you ask Andreas a question about an XT4. So good luck answering this one. Here we go. I think you should do another one personally. That was great.
Well, put it this way: it won't be yesterday, it won't be today, it might be in the future.
Very good answer.
We shall leave it at that. Right.
Did that answer your question, Murray? No, not really. No. Maybe you could flesh that one out a bit more, as you said to Andreas.
Can I just come back in, because we actually have to plan.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
We might
have to plan.
Yeah.
We might have weddings. No,
you're completely correct, Kev.
Yeah.
No, it will be it's on a Wednesday. It'll be on a Wednesday and Thursday anyway, so nobody gets married on Wednesdays and Thursdays.
I think it might have to be a watch this space one. All right, we've got a question at the front here. So.
I'm Anna McCarthy, and my question is really a sort of thank you and then a question. I want to thank you all for this amazing FujiCast that you produce.
Thank you.
This is not a reference to the tips jar, but more to say, is there something that you would like to say that we can do that isn't the tips jar or just listening every week, but something that we can do to support you in continuing doing this? Because I would just like to say for myself, it's a lonely old job being a photographer, and if you're not partnered up with someone, it really does make me, well, it's a bit of a comedy show, to be honest, as well. And,
it was never designed to be that.
And whether you're editing or doing the ironing or shouting at your child or your ex-husband or whoever it is, it really does cheer you up, and it's also incredibly informative. And the Facebook group is also such a lovely community. So I'd like to thank you, but also ask you, is there anything we can do?
Well, Paul Timlett, first of all, the Facebook group, I think he summed it up the other day when he said he wrote something about vegans using, vegan with film, and he didn't get any stupid, smarmy, answers. People were really very helpful. So I think the Facebook group has been great for that. As for helping the show,
just keep listening.
Just keep listening.
Keep reviews.
Reviews. Yes. Actually, the Apple review thing is perhaps the most important thing.
Yes.
This sounds like a desperate plea for a review, and it is.
Yeah.
So and
if you could
review
find
thing.
somebody else who could present it, would be ace.
Share. Thank you very much.
Don't be rude.
Sharing is really important. If you could send it out on Twitter, tweet it and stuff like that, that's great as well. That works really well for podcasts. Yeah, all sorts of things.
All sorts.
Right. So I think we're just about to close the show because it's time to head down the road and debrief.
No, we haven't done the emergency.
No, I know. I was about to say. So I think we should do the disasters.
Oh, that's the word.
Yeah, there we go. We had two people suggesting that they had disasters. So if you'd like to step up to the fray, let's bring on some disaster music. All right, I want you to vote out there which one of the two you think is better. So bring us your best disaster story. We're going to go with Michael again.
Yeah.
Michael again. So Michael's going to go first.
So as I can't talk about any pending or current court cases, I'm going to think back a bit longer.
Yes, please. Blimey.
This was before we had my daughter, and we were going through fertility treatment. Part of that treatment was removing my seed from me.
Where on earth is this going?
This is quite an embarrassing story.
Obviously. This is not,
it builds.
We're not a help group, you know.
No. This involved minor surgery.
Yeah, I should think it did.
Which it got maybe 3 or 4 stitches I had, but I was still mobile
I'm
after
sure
the
it's
surgery.
easier than that, you know.
No. But I know the kind of operation you're talking about because I've had one very similar. Yeah.
Just that. Well, after you've had similar, you know, you obviously have
funny
to be.
enough, when I had it done, or a thing done, the doctor spent a long time talking to me about wedding photography.
Should we all go somewhere else?
No. And he said to me, wedding photographers these days, anybody can do that sort of thing, can't they? I didn't. When somebody's got. I didn't want to disagree. Anyway, Michael, continue. Sorry, go on. You were on the
Obviously,
table.
I was left with quite a lot of bandaging.
Yes.
Around everything.
I should think, yeah.
It was like a big bandage.
Yeah.
A really big bandage.
Are you fleshing this out by any chance?
But anyway, it's obviously this fertility treatment is very expensive. So the next day I had to work. Plus, I'd had a work experience guy also say,
They
I'd
made you
promised,
work?
Well, I had to work. I was working for myself, and I'd already promised the work experience guy he'd come on a shoot.
Yeah.
So we went and into a shoot the next day. I was moving very slowly that day. I was doing a shoot in someone's house, and I was still moving around quite a little bit. And I noticed that slowly down the length of my leg during the shoot, my bandage was slowly coming off. Anyway, I thought I'd kind of got to grips with it and kept it in my trousers.
Yes.
But as we went to leave, my work experience guy gave me the bandage and said, "This just dropped out of your trousers."
Oh no!
And that was that. Oh well, thank you.
That's embarrassing. Round of applause for embarrassing. That's the sound of 1,700 people appreciating his embarrassment. Right, okay. So go on. Look who's at the microphone now.
Glasgow Lee.
Friend of the show.
It's your own fault. It's your own fault, guys. First of all, Neil, thank you for turning the heating down so we're all sweating.
That's a pleasure.
Kevin, 2 things for you. You're a man of integrity and honesty, so I want you to answer these next 2 questions with that in mind.
Yes,
in my little wallet, I've got 2 Instax pictures, one of me and my wife. What have you got in your wallet? Have you got a picture of Gemma in your wallet?
Oh.
No? What have you got in your wallet?
I have a picture of Barry John.
Do you? Good man. No way.
Picture of Barry John and loads of overdraft cards.
Do you? What about your disaster, though?
Second, thank you.
Right.
This
is only a 5-minute bed, by the way.
What is the real reason for you going vegan?
Mate.
Reason we spoke about.
Listen, he's the only one that keeps going on about the vegan thing.
I think Gemma can answer this. Gemma can answer this question.
I prefer to use plant-based diet.
Yes.
But what's the benefit?
Well, it just makes
enhancement.
It makes you.
You're a lot slimmer. You've lost so much. Well, not that you were as big as me, but because you're a bit slimmer.
It makes me feel stronger.
Yeah.
Good.
It makes me feel. I sleep better, healthier, happier.
Does he snore as much, Gemma? No. See, there we go.
Yeah.
So, disaster. I don't know what this story is, but it's a story.
Okay. Well,
I got a phone call from a bride. She said, "How much are you?" And I sort of laughed and I said, "Well, I'm not as expensive as Kevin, and I'm not as cheap as Neil." And she said, "I've got loads of money. That doesn't matter." She said, "Do you know any entertainers for the wedding?" So I said, I gave her some bands, and one of them phoned me up and said, "She's a nutter. You can't do her wedding." And I thought, well, that's exactly why I'm doing her wedding. At her wedding, there were 16 people. It snowed. She was going to have a dove release, but the dove couldn't be released because of the snow. It's too thick. In the evening, 8 people left, so that left 9 people, including me, at the wedding. They had a Michael Bublé tribute, and halfway through, I was into my little video lights, and she said to me, "The wedding's not going to last. The marriage is not going to last. He won't want any pictures," and he didn't have any pictures. So I took her to the bridal suite, as you do, and because that's where they spend the money, isn't it? That's where the money goes, into the bridal suite. And she's a gorgeous lady, quite chubby like my wife, but she's gorgeous. And God,
I think I need another one of these.
And she was took me down, and she, and I kid you not, she looked down at my zip and she licked her lips. Now,
am I going to have to edit this whole last segment out?
you know that thing, shrink in cold water? That's how I felt, so I made it a speedy exit. Anyway, she turned out to be gay and is working for Eddie Stobart. So that's my sort of disaster story.
So you turned around gay?
Yeah. Andreas, yes.
So we have a prize, of course.
We do have a round of applause.
It's the only thing that was left.
That's possibly the weirdest story I think we've ever had on this.
Especially the Eddie Stobart link.
Yeah.
Sponsored.
Gonna have to keep it in there, I'm afraid, because the context of that last bit won't work otherwise. Right, that's it. That's the end of the show. We're going to do a debriefing, obviously, in a nice drinking establishment just down the road. Which, of course, if you didn't come to this show, you're not invited to. Everybody else, though, all 1,780 of them are going to be coming along. So thank you very much. If you can leave a review, that's great. We appreciate that, as you heard us talking about just now. Thank you to JP. Where's JP gone? JP. Thank you, JP. Round of applause to JP. A huge round of applause to Andreas Georgiadis from Fujifilm. If you have any questions at all, then please keep sending them into click@fujicast.co.uk. That's our email address. Music is from Blue Wednesday. We'll be back in the studio next week.
53. We'll be like in. This is. We should sing Happy Birthday.
Should we? That would be. Should we do a happy birthday, or is that a bit cliche?
Yeah.
Oh, let's do a happy birthday, shall we? Are we allowed to do that? Because copyright.
Oh, no, you're not allowed to do it. You have to do it in like a German accent or something.
Oh, God, okay, we'll just finish with yeah. In that case, then we'll just finish with a huge round of applause from 2,894 people who have joined us at Fujifilm at this amazing establishment, which, by the way, I think it's a real statement of intent, this place, Andreas. You should be very proud of this.
Thank you.
I think it's Thank you.
And now the bits that didn't make the show.
I always think if you've left your phone on by your side, that's going to really piss you off.
Pisses Gemma off more.
We'll obviously edit that bit out.
I can't remember the question.
What was the question again? No, you've just put me off now. Sukanda, just shout it out again. I'll snip these bits together. Stop laughing. I can't snip that together when you. Who is that?
Oh, have a guess.
Could you do a little test on your one there, Kev?
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2
Bit more noise.
1 2 1 2
Bit more noise.
1 2 1 2 1 2. I can't do less grumpy.
Think of Gemma.
1 2.
There we go.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.